Queen Tut,
Yes,
can you hear me all right?
I can very clearly.
Very good. Yeah, it sounds good. All right. So I saw that email that you sent me. I'm very interested to hear what you have to say about Robert David Steele.
Uh, if you notice, I took apart his responses that he gave when I asked questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually going to that email right now so I can reference it as we talk.
Sure.
And I had a lot of other information that I opened up here. So, let's see here.
So were you one of the people that had contributed to the unrig movement when we had him as a guest on the show?
Yes.
Okay.
I was encouraged to do that because of the interview.
Okay. That's interesting.
I wouldn't have done it.
I apologize. I was deceived by him. I mean, I've only ever, prior to that, seen him on InfoWars and things like that. And of course, George met with him in good faith, and we brought him on the show in good faith. And I felt a little uneasy, actually, asking the Crowdsource community for money for anyone, because obviously that was well before we had even started our sponsorship program. And I was just so disappointed that within less than 24 hours, he turned around and immediately became,
Hostile.
Yes, hostile.
And I saw that in my email thread that I had with him. If you notice, what happened is I started to think about this situation. So I've done a lot of community activism and in anti-corruption. I worked on the political level. I did that for about 10 years, for a number of years. So I'm very experienced in dealing with political people, political situations. I understand a lot of the processing politically, with bills, situations like that. I wound up meeting with Lieutenant Governor and stuff like that. So I did a bunch of that stuff for a while, a number of years ago, okay? And I had a university sanctioned for lead and asbestos issues by the EPA, which has never happened before or after.
Wow.
So I've been really, really active, and also I was made a target as a result of that activism. So I've lived through every phase that people go through when you actually do something.
Right.
When you do something, you become the target.
Well, believe me, I know.
Right. And if you never do anything, you don't become a target, which, by the way, Robert David Steele.
Yeah.
He is not a target. Guess why? Because he doesn't really do anything.
Well, I think he's a targeter. He's a person who I question if any of his credentials are authentic. I think he's just a cheap con man.
I totally agree. And I discovered that by, I created my own metadata, basically, to use the term and the model that's within the context of this group with George and you and Trish. I actually created my own metadata I started to think about this, and I was going, I'm just going to put this thing out to him and email him. This was 2 days ago. And I sent a copy of that email to you. You don't have the other emails I got in the thread as it goes along. But I sent that first one because it can get confusing.
Yeah.
But in the first one, you see, I tell him, well, why didn't you create an implementation program? This is what I would do. And I put ... right?
Right.
And he got hooked right into that right away with his response, like, yeah, I'm interested. What can you do for me?
Right.
If you notice, okay?
Well, that's his motto. What can you do for me?
Exactly. But then you go on, and I said, you can't. I mentioned in there that the fall schedule was too quick. You can't accomplish everything you're doing by fall.
Right.
I'm kind of paraphrasing because I'm looking for the email right now. I wish I would have had that more prepared. I've got everything else prepared. But so anyway, and then he responds by saying, I agree with you. The timing is not good.
Yeah,
and
so
then
he knows it's a useless campaign. He's just trying to suck $250,000 out of people.
You got it. And I also, not only that is the timing off, but I also pointed out the other language that he used in that email, which states that we're going to have this done. We want this passed by November 2017, right?
Yeah.
We want this Election Reform Act passed by then. Well, you don't have the email. The last email I stated to him, when I realized what was happening here in my series of emails with him, I finally went, oh, man, I get it. he's really conning people and he's trying to manipulate me.
Yeah.
And so my last email I sent to him, I said, well, if this is the center of your campaign and it's Electoral Reform Act, which, by the way, it isn't an act. It isn't even an act yet. That's just a name he put on there.
Right.
Because an act is something that gets passed into law after it's gone through the process through Congress. Like, I asked him in that email, if you, let me see here. I said to him, I'm looking at my email right now that I sent him.
Yeah.
I said, along with your 12 points outline and integrity pledge, shouldn't you have a working draft of a bill that includes these 12 points? It helps the representatives move more quickly if you present a somewhat completed project. You could also post this draft to your website. And then he responds, this is an email I just sent to Ron Paul's office actually a little while ago. Yes, he responds, but he says yes, but I'm going to let Ron Paul's staff do that. I'm busy with unrigged logistics and funding.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that's the last email I sent, and I knew I got him. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, first of all, I went back and did all the research, and I sent you that Word document with all those screenshots.
Yep.
He's been using the same format, the electoral reform format, and the pledges since 2010. And every single year he says the same thing. Let's, get the legislative passed. Let's get this passed in the legislative, the Reform Act. And I've got it all laid out in that Word document I sent you in the screenshots, and I even have more information on that. But I did the research. I went through his whole site and saw the pattern, 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 and 17. He says the exact same pattern every single time. It is a scam.
Yeah.
The Electoral Reform Act is a scam.
Yeah.
And so is the pledge. Because he said every single time, every year, and I've got quotes from 2012 where he says, we're going to take this pledge to all the legislators and we're going to get this done. Let me ask you, has it been done?
No, of course not.
No, it hasn't been done. He's still running the same pledge, the same Electoral Reform Act delusion, because it's not an act. And all he had to do was actually take the necessary steps, as a professional person would do, to submit this, to put it into bill form and submit it to Congress.
Now,
that is the process you do.
Yep. Now, so I have a couple questions for you, Queen Tut.
Sure.
So he's got these emails from you. If we're going to publish this on Crowdsource the Truth, is he going to identify you, and does that put you at any risk? How can I protect your identity from him?
He will know who I am, because it's going to be obvious from everything I'm stating. And I went through that already before contacting you. Am I willing to let that be? Because he'll know who I am.
Right.
It's going to be obvious to him. It won't be obvious to everybody else, but it'll be obvious to him, because I'm the only one who did these emails.
Right.
With this wording.
What I want to do, because I agree with you completely, I think he's involved in a pretty serious financial scam. I think that there's the possibility that a RICO charge could be involved, because I think he's got DeFango with him. I think that he is defrauding people across state lines. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, of course, but it seems like he's doing a lot of things that are very criminally actionable. Do you have any legal background?
Oh, well, yeah, I do have some. I'm not an attorney, but let me tell you, when I was doing the activism I was doing, I was involved in legal cases left and right, including my own, against a university, which was involved in. It's a long story to get into, but, I've got newspaper articles to back up my activism, everything. So I know a lot about legal situations, and I'm going to tell you his MO of, threatening and crushing the little guy but sucking up to the power player is very obvious.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
He sucked up to George.
Right.
He tried to crush you.
Yeah, no, I know. And I mean, it just doesn't even make sense, because he's so simplistic in his thinking, and it's almost insulting to George or anyone that he does this to, because, I mean, it defies all logic. It's like a new paradigm of stupidity. He doesn't know anything about my relationship with George, yet he thinks he can just come in there and, sort of fracture it.
Well, if you've looked at it, I wound up doing a whole bunch of research. By the way, I am a researcher too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
by trade. So
Hmm.
I went and did a whole lot of research after I had these email things, and I went and looked at that video again that you did, the interview you did with him. I don't know if you've noticed, but he has used the F-bomb everywhere throughout, related to you, calling you F. Jason throughout a number of the posts on that video.
A video on our channel? I didn't know that.
Yeah, the video interview that you did with him and George,
Right.
that you posted to the internet. Well, I went and looked at it again last night,
Yeah.
and I was looking at all the posts, and there's a bunch of FU Jasons.
Oh, in the comments, you're saying?
In the comments.
Ah,
in the
yes.
comments.
So I haven't
Yeah.
looked at those. I haven't looked at Well, I mean, he's crazy. That's just he's leaving so much evidence there.
Here's this guy who comes out like a smiling little chipmunk, you know,
Yeah.
and like got this great vision, and then he'll just like completely flip and do these very aggressive, violent kind of responses to people.
Yeah, yeah. He's a obviously I'm not a mental health professional, but it certainly seems like he's got some kind of schizophrenic behavior there.
And I believe he's an intentional operator.
Oh, I agree.
This is intentional,
Absolutely.
like his method.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't you agree?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, look, my thing is I just go by my gut, really, when it comes to people. And, within a day of knowing him, he just started coming at me with all this aggressive language. And I don't know if you heard the portion of the recorded phone call that I had when he told me I was going to be arrested by the NYPD. But obviously, that was a tense moment. George and I are partners on this investigation and the news agency that we're creating and all that. And, when George was arrested in Ohio, that was a tense moment. And then this guy starts telling me, all my contacts are telling me you're going to be arrested by the NYPD. I became nervous. The notion that you'd be arrested is not exactly settling. But, as I began to think about it, it just didn't make any sense. I mean, I live just a couple blocks away from the police precinct, and certainly if they wanted me, particularly on a matter that the Coast Guard or the FBI or something like that would contact them over, they'd be here in a matter of minutes. It wouldn't, I didn't even see his email for an hour and a half or something, and so I immediately started thinking, well, I don't really think that's true. But as soon as I started questioning him in the phone call, he was talking about the interview, and I was like, Robert, I don't care about the interview. I want to hear about this NYPD situation. And he just basically cursed at me, said our relationship is over, and hung up the phone. And then he starts sending me emails with messages intended for George. He's not even smart in how he's trying to perpetrate this scam. So I don't really know what to say about that. But the bigger questions I have, Queen Tut, are, first of all, are you aware of his involvement with Cynthia McKinney? What do you make of that situation and that aspect of the situation? And what do you think we can do as members of the crowdsource community who, certainly in states and potentially even, I guess it's mostly, I haven't done an evaluation, I think it's mostly people in the United States, but it's not just New York. And, he was, I guess, where were they? I guess they were in Ohio, or I don't even remember where George was. I'd have to check. But it certainly crosses state lines, multiple individuals, over $15,000. It's a very serious crime, and I'd like to pursue criminal charges against him.
Well, here's what I have to say about his involvement with Cynthia McKinney. When you look at his behavior, his pattern of behavior with his scam of the electoral reform, he always finds a name to attach himself and reinvents himself every year. Right. And I think Cynthia is the latest in the reinvention, because now all of a sudden he's what you call Hispanic now. He never mentioned that before, but now he's a member of, the minorities, and he's bringing minorities in. That's his new MO. Okay, before that, he wasn't functioning from that level. That's the new reinvention. And so he brings Cynthia, he goes after people who don't really get what he's doing. Okay, and I think Cynthia's kind of innocent in this, to be honest with you. Right. And I think that he's got a really good game. And I think that after he reinvents himself every year, the people who are involved in those reinventions, discard him and don't associate with him, but they don't confront him and they don't expose him.
Well,
They
maybe
just, you know,
maybe that's a
wash their
result of
hands.
his aggressive, threatening behavior. You know, most people are pretty opposed to a conflict with somebody like that.
Well, I think they see him for what he is after you work with. All I had to do was do a few emails, and I saw, whoa, because
Yeah.
he dismissed me at the end. I was
Right.
dismissed.
Right.
Okay, when all of a sudden he was telling me, "Wow, this is great stuff." And you haven't seen those emails. I've got them all. Where he says, "Oh, this is great stuff." When I restate his 12 points in a better fashion. And I tell him that it'd be better understood for people if you did it like this. You know, I went on with stuff. I was pushing the envelope there, and then that's when he started revealing himself. And then he dismisses me in the end. But I didn't want to be dismissed until I actually asked him that question about why haven't you written a bill about this? You know,
Yeah.
'cause I wanted to get that on paper.
Yep.
And by the way, before I go on with completing his pattern there, but let me just, since we're on this, like I said, I just read that what I said to him, along with your 12 points outline integrity pledge, shouldn't you have a working draft of the bill that includes these 12 points? It helps the representatives move more quickly if you present a somewhat completed project. You could also post this draft to your website. And then he responds, yes, but I'm going to let Rand Paul staff do that. I'm busy with unrigged logistics and funding. By the way, I sent a copy of this email. I talked to a staffer in Ron Paul's office in Kentucky. I gave him the backstory.
We're talking about Rand Paul or Ron Paul?
Rand Paul.
Rand Paul.
Because that's who he refers to. He
Right.
says he's going to have them write the bill. Okay,
Right,
so I thought,
right.
okay, he's already stated in email, so I'm just going to talk to a Rand Paul staffer and confirm that they're working with Robert David Steele and they're going to write his bill. When I talked to a staffer there, Bobby, she gave me a private email. She said, please forward that email to us and then give us a little bit of the backstory and the question you have.
Right.
So I did that. And I said, you know, in the email to them, and I can't publish their private email,
Right.
but she said she will get an answer for me. So I asked in that email, said, are you associated with Robert David Steele, and will you be creating a bill for Robert David Steele's Electoral Reform Act of 2017?
Yeah.
Okay? So they haven't responded yet. But I want to let you know in this interview that I have followed up on that, and they are going. She assured me that they are going to find out what, you know, the information and let me know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think he uses people and he throws names around.
Right.
And he tries to associate, because you can't find a picture of him anywhere on the internet with Rand Paul.
Well, nor Cynthia McKinney, and I want to get back to her just for a moment because, you know,
Yeah, sure.
when we were in England, I was talking with Trish about this because, you know, obviously, if you've been watching our broadcasts, everyone is very adamant about telling me to ignore trolls, and I appreciate that input, of course, but it's a fine line between trolls and actual criminals. Trolls are simply annoying. Criminals are doing damage to our crowdsourced community, and they deserve to be, served justice. So we did that. Trish and I just Googled Cynthia McKinney, Robert David Steele, and there was not a single picture of them together. And then about 3 hours after that, in the same day, you know, we continued to look around for stuff. A video appeared on a YouTube site, a YouTube channel from someone called Jaguar Girl 70 or something like that, which appeared to be a new channel. It only had 3 videos, and that had a Skype interview or a Skype roundtable with the Jaguar Girl, Cynthia McKinney, and Robert David Steele. And Cynthia McKinney was very positive about Robert David Steele. But again, it was unclear, you know, if the guy comes to her and says, hey, you know, we're doing all this great stuff and I've got money behind me. Obviously, Dr. McKinney is interested in at least the things that he's talking about, and certainly can't presume that she knows what's happening. But then on June 20th, she put a post on her Facebook page here at 7:43 p.m. I'm in New York as I read this, so I don't know if the time changes or whatever, but it says, check it out and let me know what you think. Pardon the jiggling of my camera. So, you know, maybe she put this up in haste, and maybe she's sort of doing her own little crowdsource evaluation of it. And then someone named Linda B. Marie Williams said, Dear amazing sweet Cynthia, Robert David Steele owes Crowdsource the Truth and Jason Goodman an apology. He was way out of line. And Dr. McKinney says, I agree. So somebody sent this to me, that brought this to my attention,
Interesting.
And then I put a comment in there, and these are all still there on Facebook. I put a comment in there at 7:36. I was in Oxford when I wrote this. I said, Dr. McKinney, I hope we can work together to resolve what quite clearly is so far an unfortunate misunderstanding. And there's been no response from her. So I'm a little disappointed by that, and I still want to give, oh wait, here, she says, I think they both now understand that we need each other and that everyone in this movement is important. In other words, I think it's all over now. That's interesting. I hadn't seen that response from Cynthia McKinney until right now, and I don't know what gives her the impression.
What do you think? What do you think of that response? What does that do for you?
I'm quite surprised to see that response. I have in our broadcasts and also in that message on her Facebook wall, I would have hoped that she would click on my name and send me a message and say, can you tell me your side of this? I'm just coming into it. I don't really know Robert, et cetera, whatever she might have said. But the fact that she's under the impression that it's been worked out, that confuses me. I'm not sure. I think I need to respond to her here.
Well, here's what I think. I think she's got like all kinds of back stuff coming from, Robert David Steele. I think, he creates this little spell with his words. He's a really, really good talker. He's very assertive, He's very, very good at talking and writing, but he never does anything. And I'm sure he's got her kind of, I've seen it a number of times with people. It's very, very easy to get snowed, especially when you're being told, hey, we're going to raise $250K, bring you back to the U.S. and do this movement.
Yes.
He hooked her higher ideals, I don't think she's probably done enough investigation on him, and I don't think anyone has, to be honest with you. I haven't seen anything.
I agree with that, and that's why I'm hopeful that what we're doing right now will finally shed some light on this. I'm about to post this to her wall. I'm responding to her comment, which was from June 22nd, admittedly 4 days ago, and I'm going to say, Cynthia McKinney, PhD, that's automatically filled in by Facebook. I'm not sure why, I'm not sure how you have come to this conclusion. We are getting a lot of angry emails from our Crowdsource the Truth community. People want their money back and do not trust RDS. Please get in touch with me directly so we can resolve this once and for all. I'm going to send that right now.
Great.
I'd like Dr. McKinney to contact us and let us know what's going on. I do, as you've said, believe that she's being taken advantage of just like everyone else because, the only exposure that I had to Dr. McKinney prior to this was the video in which she's questioning Donald Rumsfeld, and I supported that, obviously. I felt she was a very bold, strong person to do that. And I would think that someone in her position and of her stature would be much more proactive about figuring out what's going on rather than just, a lot of people have been emailing me about this, and they're sending me emails that they've gotten from him where he's threatening them and telling them that I'm, this or that or whatever sort of bad things he's saying about me. And one of our users sent me an email where RDS told one of our Crowdsource members that we had come to a settlement, which is absolutely absurd. I basically told him to stand down from cursing out my people and saying negative things about me, but I certainly do not agree that we've had any kind of settlement. I think he owes an apology and he needs to offer everyone who gave him money their money back. And based on everything that I've seen and everything that you're sharing with me, I don't think he's about to do that. So I'm very interested in pursuing this with you, Queen Tut, and working with you to see if there are criminal charges that could be brought against him. I am personally convinced that he is a con man, and he's got to be stopped.
I agree. Now, here's what I want to tell you. He's somewhat trained in intelligence, and part of intelligence techniques is to immediately discredit the person that's challenging or questioning them. Okay, and I'm sure that after this interview, if he gets wind of it, and he knows who this information is, he may start something with me. He may start trying to do something with me. I was aware of that before I chose to do this, or else he might just blow it off and say, hey, I'll just make it bigger if I just focus on her. But the fact is, when those emails, when he dismissed me at the end, I had a long talk with people who understand this.
Yeah.
It was clear to me that he was manipulating me, and he's very skilled at it.
Right.
You know, he was trying to manipulate me.
Right.
Okay, but I was already intentionally, when I went to question him, was to find out where he's really at. Now, here's the thing. You know, this guy is. I think it's the end of the game for him.
I agree.
To be honest with you.
He's acting desperately, I think.
I think so too. I think so too. And do I think he's affiliated with intelligence organizations that want to create disinfo to keep everybody stagnant? It's a possibility. I think he is disinfo completely, because he's kept this whirlwind of the electoral reform going for a long time. And he's had a lot of presence, and people who just weren't educated maybe 7 or 8 years ago about how these kind of people work.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
but now it's all out there.
Right.
You know, a lot of this is out there, and he fits the model of somebody who, you know, sucks people in, squashes them, you know, or either has followers, or if you question, he squashes you. It's
Right.
all part of that process.
Yeah.
You know, that they do. And I think your channel and the people involved in it, the researchers, everyone who follows, George, you know, it's a whole new revelation and doorway.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. It's people who are aligned for truth. I mean, we're just people who want integrity and honesty, and it's like, you know, it's people who are sick and tired of people like Robert David Steele, the robber David who steals. They're sick of it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
We
Yeah.
all just want to be honorable and treat each other with respect. Doesn't matter if you're black or white or Jewish or Christian or whatever you might be. If everybody comes to the table with an even hand and dealing straight, that's fine. The thing that upsets me so much about him and DeFango, and you know, they both operate in the same way, and I was very initially curious that immediately after coming on our show, Robert David Steele went on to DeFango's show. I found that very strange.
That was interesting.
But I think that they are affiliated in some way. I mean, even if it's just the appearance on that show, they certainly share the same tactics. Now, you've said just a moment ago that you think that Robert David Steele is trained in intelligence. I would like to follow up and figure out why you think that, because my feeling is he's just a guy who identified that, you know, the CIA will never confirm or deny if someone is or is not an operative. So if you go around saying, hey, I'm ex-CIA, how can such a statement be corroborated or verified?
Well, the way I look at it is, look how long he's been operating, okay?
Mm-hmm.
With nobody squashing him, nobody going after him, nothing. He's had kind of an open door to do everything he's doing. And that's a sign to me that, well, he hasn't been targeted. You know, if you're doing real work, you get targeted.
Right.
And I personally experienced that in the work I've done. Very serious targeting.
Right.
And I know you guys have, and I know George has. I mean, that's why I watch it, because I know what this is like. I've been there and done that.
Right.
So Robert has never been targeted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he mentions he has been trained in CIA. It's in a Wikipedia article on him. He has been in the military.
But anybody can write a Wikipedia article.
Yes, but it's very hard to let it stay up there.
Why?
You cannot keep it up. I'll tell you why. If there's no truth, they've got people who zoom in all the time. And because I've done that, I've actually posted some stuff into a Wikipedia article. And I had people zooming in every 10 minutes to delete what I put in there, okay, from the Wikipedia community.
Well, but that's targeting again. That's not necessarily proof of anything.
Well, that's actually how they operate, Jason. I mean, they have a whole Wikipedia following that wants to make sure that whatever you put in there is done exactly the way it's supposed to do, you know, and the information's correct and references and everything like that. Now, can a fake one be put up? Yeah, and kept up? Yeah, because if they get the wink and the nod from the right people, they aren't going to do that.
Right.
You know? They're good. So that's why I say, even in his Wikipedia, so he has all the flags. Let me say this. Now, was he high-level CIA? No. I don't think he was high-level. I think he was like just one of the guys in the bottom. He's got some of the techniques down, and that's why he's been able to scam people for so long. People who have been naive and were looking for answers, he was able to scam them for a while because he knows some of the techniques. You know, that's just my observation and
Yeah,
my
I say we still don't have any real firm evidence of that. I think that this could be a tale that he has spun, and I question his credentials.
yeah. Well, you know, I'm with you on that. I mean, it can be questioned, but I suspect, these are just my suspicions, but I agree with you too. It is
Yeah.
a possibility. He's just like a really good con man.
And what do we know about his
You know,
military background? Where has that been confirmed?
that's all in Wikipedia.
I mean, again,
That's it.
I think people should start looking at that Wikipedia and start confirming some of his claims. Anyone who's become skeptical as a result of this. And I'll tell you something else. Even if he was in the military, obviously, that's one thing. But there are people who leave the military and then go on to commit crimes against the people of the United States, which if he's committing financial fraud, that's what he's done. And having served in the military in the past is not an excuse to allow you to do that.
Well, also another red flag is look at his site. It is loaded. It is the busiest site I've ever seen. It's the most confusing site I've ever seen.
Right.
You go to that site, and it's just kind of like a hoarder site.
Yeah.
Everything everything you can put on there, he puts on there. And because I was looking for the unrigged, and I was looking for the specific 12 points, and it took me a while because there's so much garbage on that site.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I haven't even had the time to look at it, and the reason this is even occupying my attention, because I do think he's a loser and somebody who's not worth my time, it's that he's done damage to our community. He's taken money from people who trusted in us, and I can't allow that to happen. So it's for that reason that I feel that we need to circle back and take a look at this. And I mean, there are people that are advising me to just ignore it and move on and consider him a troll. But I believe there may be criminal activity here, and I think we need to take it to the next level and get law enforcement involved. And, if there's anything else you'd like to share, I think we should try and wrap this call up because I want to upload something that's digestible for people, and we've been talking for about 30 minutes.
Okay. There's not much more I want to share. I think you pretty much covered it with your questions and with the things that I've said. And I just wanted to let you know that, you don't have to disguise my voice. I've heard the other interview, and it's kind of weird to have the voice disguised. You can just keep it straight.
Okay, that's fine. That saves me time.
You can keep it straight. You just can keep it straight.
Very
and
good.
The other thing I want to do is I want to thank you. I want to thank George. I want to thank Trish. And I want to thank all the people who are involved in this. They're doing incredible work, and it's a great light for people. It's a beacon.
Wow.
So I appreciate everything you've done.
Thank you for saying that. It really makes me feel good to know that there are people out there who are like-minded and that we can work together to try to overcome this. Because I know, when you're one person and you're being targeted or you're being taken advantage of, or I think everybody has had their own version of that, whether it's an employer or a client or someone taking advantage of them. I think we need to sort of join together and say enough is enough and use our legal power and our collective voice to stamp out this kind of criminal behavior. So we're going to keep referring to you as the confidential crowdsource contact Queen Tut, and I'm sure we'll be speaking again. And thank you for all of this information.
Okay.
Have a
See
good
you.
afternoon. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.